Flyweight boxing with Frank Warren and Queensbury up to the Steel City Gym in Sheffield, of course, to see the IBF World Flyweight Champion Sonny Edwards. How are you, Sonny?
Yeah, good. I always forget until I get another interview, you know what I mean? And then I get reminded by the introduction. It's nice.
Well, it's the first time we've caught up since, so the obvious question, what everyone wants to know, is have you maintained those 4 abs that you built up before the fight?
No chance. They're still lurking around. They're still lurking, but not fully gone. To be fair, I've stayed in the gym pretty much, had a week off, and I've been in the gym. I've done probably about 30 rounds of sparring, maybe more, since my world title fight. You know, I've done mileage, I've been in the gym most days, so yeah, I'm still ticking over, do you know what I mean?
How long till the blisters went?
Fully, about 4 weeks, but they weren't really hurting, to be fair.
Really?
It was only like I don't mind sort of leaving the dry skin on my foot. I sit there twiddling it, you know, until it falls off. Nuts, I know, but I sit there twiddling it until it falls off, and then it was only like right at the edge, you know, where the skin's attached still.
Where you got
That's the only bit that hurt off. That hurt a bit. I pulled one of them. I think after a run or a spar, I pulled a little bit, and it was but apart from that, no, that's sound.
So the usual cheesy question: does it feel any different?
No, perfectly honest.
Has it sunk in then?
I don't know about seeing.
Or you just
in.
don't know what to expect? How are you going to feel?
Because the whole way through my career, you can go back, you can watch back the interviews. I've always said that I'm going to be a world champion. I'm going to be top of the tree. I'm going to be mixing it with the elite. And then in my first chance at doing it, I did it. You know what I mean? So I weren't overly surprised. I mean, you see the reaction of me as the results getting announced. You can see it with my initial reaction after. I was happy, obviously, but I weren't over surprised.
You weren't
I wasn't
like emotion,
jumping up and down. I
overwhelmed,
wasn't crying in the ring or anything like that. It's just, this is boxing, isn't it? This is boxing. You know what I mean?
They say champions develop an aura, though, an aura about themselves between winning a title and their next fight. Are you feeling any of that?
I'm not sure. We'll find out. We'll find out in the next fight. But I've always been a confident kid, confident in my abilities. Really? Yeah, and then this is just probably cementing everything I thought I could do. And I've been showing in sparring since I was a kid, and who I've mixed it with and when I've mixed it with them. And so I had the belief in myself. My team had the belief in me to a great degree. But for the first time now, I'm coming into like sort of camp and training, and I know I'm one of the best in the world, and I've got the proof. You know what I mean? It's in the boot of my car. I've got the proof. You know what I mean? So
has that belt been out and about a bit? Has it?
You know what? Not that much. Every time I go anywhere, I'm asked, "Where's the belt? Where's the belt?" I just don't like really bringing it around, to be honest. I feel like I'm over conscious of being one of those people that win a title and then you just don't ever see them without it, do you know what I mean? So if anything, apart from like the first couple of days, the first couple of places, it's not been nowhere.
You're still in mint condition then?
Yeah, that's the other reason as well. It's been very few places, to be perfectly honest, but it's in the car today because I'm taking it down my strength and conditioning coach's new gym, and he wants a picture with it, so there we go.
That fight is something that sort of struck me in terms of, they talk about the physical exertions of boxing, but watching that fight and knowing how you work, the mental concentration that you must have had to put into a fight like that, to know him, but for 36 minutes of combat, you really couldn't afford to let that fella get too close or to land one on you, or it could have been game over. The mental exhaustion must have been quite telling, wasn't it? I mean, did it hit you a day later, the following day?
I was physically exhausted, but everything exhausted, to be fair, for at least 3-4 days after. But that, you get like a boxing come down, do you know what I mean? It really is like waking up with a mad hangover. Do you know, after all the adrenaline has left your body, do you know what I mean? And your body's aching from the fight, and you're bruised and battered and got lumps and bumps at the top of your head from elbows and whatnot. And you know, it was nice to just sort of enjoy it for a few days and come round. But I've always had, like I said, that confidence in my ability.
But knowing you just couldn't put a foot wrong, every move you made had to be calculated and sure-footed to make sure that you stayed out of bother.
Yeah, but I feel
normally you can get away, You got chinned a couple of times in the earlier fights. Didn't really matter. You could sort of dance your way out of it. You probably couldn't take that risk against this fella.
No way, because if he was hurting you, he was putting you away. Most likely, that's what he does to fighters. But I feel like one thing with the advantage of my game plan, and never has and never probably will be, getting in there and we're ironing people out, or it's an early night's work. So with the lack of knockouts I've had and the sort of abundance of rounds I've had, I've been able to learn my trade in the lights. You know what I mean? I've boxed for a 16-round fight. I've boxed a lot of rounds. You know what I mean? I've had a lot of title fights. Most of them gone a distance. The one that haven't have gone fairly into the fight.
When you stopped Matos, he's been taking everyone the distance ever since, hasn't he?
Yeah, see, I'm a big puncher now, joking. But because of the way I set my sort of my stand, the way I, go about my business, I know that I've got 36 minutes focus, concentration, discipline in me. Because whilst I'm in the ring, there's not moments where I'm thinking, he's getting me this round, or I'm slowing down. I'm getting up for the stall even when it's hard and just thinking, you're having it now, do you know what I mean? I'm coming out, I'm stamping my point in the round and then taking away again. And any success that he was getting, I never let him build on it too much, and I'd take it away, I'll change my rhythm, I'll change the angle. Even at times I was staying that little bit closer. I was going from staying out of range to then when he was trying to adjust, I was then getting on his chest and hugging the side of him, just to keep it fresh, keep it moving. And then the shots that he would have thrown in the first half of the round when I was in range, he was hesitating on and giving me that split second, to get out. So there was a lot of things we'd worked on, a lot of things we did, me and Grant, and there was never a moment in there that I genuinely didn't think that, one, I weren't winning, and two, that I weren't seeing the final bell. Maybe if it started getting hard, then I was thinking, how am I going to get through the top? Maybe if them doubts started creeping in, my concentration would have went, my feet would have went, my punch resistance would have went.
If you lose your rhythm, then you'd be in trouble.
Yeah, but because I was so fixated on, so I know when I get in there, I know I'm a very hard person to outbox. So once I know I've racked up 7 of those 12 rounds, and there's only 5 rounds to play, all I've got to do is, I don't even have to nick any of them, but nicking a couple and making them work for every round that they could nearly get. Then all the scorecards are always going to be in my favour. That's how I sort of set out, get up nice and early.
He seemed a bit drained by it all, didn't he? When you went to see him in that little scene that was filmed after the fight where he was sitting down and you went to say a few words to him, he just sort of, he looked quite forlorn, but you sort of think, well, going in with you must be a nightmare, because fighters like him must be thinking, will you just fight?
Yeah.
And they've got to accept it just ain't going to happen.
And do you know what? I've got a massive, massive amount of respect for Murray. He'd have before, way before he was fighting, during the build-up, during the fight and after the fight. Because, don't get me wrong, I understand it was probably a bit short of me after, do you know what I mean? I'm on a high, he's on a low. But he just oozes class, do you know what I mean? He's such a good fighter. He's got a bit in between his teeth, and you can tell he's probably always had them chips on his shoulder through boxing, and boxing's not been as good to him as it probably should have and could have been. And really, when you think about it, he's been to every corner of the world fighting the best everyone's got that will fight him, and beating him for the most part, do you know what I mean? Pretty much all of the part. And there was probably a 1%, maybe less than that, in his mind, back of the head, he thought he was coming out of that fight a loser. If you look at the names that he's beat, and compare who I've beat, what I've done, how I've done it for some of the fights, they would have thought no chance. Do you know what I mean? And they would 100% thought they...
He probably didn't think you'd get away from him for 12 rounds, did he?
Nah, no way.
He would have watched your fights and thought, well, he won't be able to do that to me.
No one gets away from Murray. We look at Yasha tried it, look, Tete tried, no one gets away from him and stays away from him. Even Casemiro was trying to box and move, and just couldn't keep him off him. That's
one thing a lot of people said about you though, wasn't it? It was saying, but you've heard it all, as he moves through the levels, he won't be able to take the power, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't carry any power to take up the levels. You've heard it all, haven't you?
Yeah, but I sting you enough to, the first 6 rounds, he was reacting to all of my feints, which means that when I was throwing a punch and landing, he, maybe not feeling him in the sense of he was getting rocked, but it was reminding him where he was, do you know what I mean? And he couldn't just walk in because he was getting outscored. And then in the second half of the fight, he stopped reacting to my feints, and that's when he probably made the conscious, maybe subconscious decision that no matter what you're throwing, I'm just getting to you. But the way I had him reacting and sort of triggering on every feint in the first half shows that he was appreciating what was landing. Because if he wasn't, he would have just walked straight through. Do you know what I mean? I was landing some good body shots, I was kicking and moving, and a lot of it was when he was sort of throwing shots blind, is when I was catching him and in between his rhythm. I weren't trying to hurt him, I weren't trying to set my feet to try and get him out of there, because That would have been absolutely stupid of me to do so. He's teak tough, he's relentless, he just keeps going and going and going. And if anyone stands there and have a war with him, he probably comes out top side. I mean, there's reasons why Martinez didn't want to fight him, why he hasn't had any of these other unifications. He's been heavily avoided. I think he's had 11 or 12 world title fights. I think he's won 10 of them, 9 as champion.
You might struggle for unifications though, because people will watch that and watch you sort of skipping around a top champion like that and thinking, do I really want to fight this guy?
Of course, and I think that's where it's going to go now. But there's now the reward of the IBF, which for a lot of fighters is worth it. But you're right, the unifications I probably still will struggle. I mean, right now the only one that I'm sort of all full gun blazing for is Martinez. I mean, he's the number 1 with the ring, I'm number 2. Ring magazine will be on there, WBC, IBF. But for me, that's the only fight that I'm heading towards. You know, I've got mandatory to clear out the way first. And then any voluntary chance I'd get there, the fights I'd be looking to make. You know what I mean? I want all the belts and I want to be considered as the best in the division.
What's your mandatory's name? I can't remember.
Jason Momoa, Filipino.
Turns out he was paid a bit of step aside to get out of the way.
Yeah.
So,
but I think
you've got to honour that one. So what do we know about him?
He's a good fighter, quite big for the weight, good body shots, throws when you're there. But another one that I think he'll just, you know, I'll tie him up in knots for a lot of the fight. I think a lot of people struggle when you're not there to throw against, when you're not just sort of trading back and forth. Boxing changes very quickly, and it's not the same fighter that you've watched for the last 16 of his or the last 41 fights of Moretti. It's a different fighter because they're fighting someone very, very different. And it's like I'm playing chess and they're playing checkers a lot of the time. They're looking at it very simple. Oh, we'll just get in there, hit him harder than I hit, then he hits me, hit him more, either win or knock him out. But in me, there's a million and one things. There's loads of different routes. There's loads of different rhythms we've got to draw back on. You know, we've got different tactics. I've got orthodox, I've got southpaw, I've got square on at times. I do different stuff every round constantly, and it's hard to. When you only got 3 minutes at a time, 3 minutes sit down, 3 minutes sit down, and you've really got to win 2 of those 3 minutes. It's hard when someone's constantly adjusting and constantly changing. Do you know what I mean?
When you're done, you've got to consider strictly, really, haven't you? Sort of considering your footwork and
no way.
sort of how you can learn these drills and learn all these little movements.
No, I know. Obviously, that was tongue in cheek, but you see me out. My grand plan is I only ever want to be a boxer, and then a coach, manager, advisor, pundit, commentator. I only ever want to just be known for boxing, in boxing, for boxing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I have no interest on going on Strictly Come Dancing or you know, taking 3 months out and going spending time on a farm or whatever. I just don't. That celebrity status is. I don't care about it. If I'm perfectly honest, you'll see me at every single boxing show. You'll see me, you know, the Fightzone ones up in the studio. You'll see me at the MTK one on Friday. You'll see me at the Frank Warren one and the Matchroom one. I go to all the boxing shows. I want to be.
I want to talk to you about Friday. And obviously Jay Harris is fighting. Is it a final eliminator?
That'd be a final eliminator, which puts him after.
You've got
Jason.
to. You're just going to fight a mandatory, which will then give you another 9 months grace or something. So potentially Jay is fighting for something which is a fair way in the future.
Yeah, perhaps, but who's to say that I beat Jason Momoa and don't give Jay the voluntary?
Yeah, but you want the other fellow, don't you? Martinez.
Yeah, I know, but who says he wants me? His promoter, you know, every single post is coming up to his fight week. I think it is his fight week. Every post that Martinez they've put out about him, I've been tagged in multiple times. They've been retweeted multiple times. Everything, you know, people are jumping around. Is this the fight they want to see in the flyweight? They don't want to see Martinez against a 12-4-3 Mexican with 3 knockouts. I mean, one thing you know normally when you get Mexicans, they got knockouts. He ain't even got them. You know what I mean? He's been stopped clean nearly as many times as he's knocked out his opponent, and it's just, for me, kind of disgusting matchmaking. To be fair, very unambitious, 1,000,000%. They had 3-4 weeks notice apparently for that opponent, and probably more. And the best they could do was a 12-4-3 Mexican. You know what I mean? It just doesn't really sit right with me when there probably is a multitude of fighters that would have had a 3 or 4 week notice, and it would have all still been in Martinez's favour, but he just didn't want to know. And he's saying that he wants to unify. He's saying that he wants the unification. But when Eddie was asked about me versus him,
sort of sidestepped it, didn't he?
Sidestep ran off camera. He was off ski, he was gone, which is fair enough. if they've got me, if I'm not in their plans, then it makes sense. But you cannot sit and tell and argue with me that there's a bigger flyweight fight out there right now than me and Martinez. It's impossible. None of the other world champions make a bigger fight. It's impossible.
You went to watch another fight last Friday, I think it was. Someone that your name has been intrinsically linked with over the last couple of years, but he went and got beaten again by one of your opponents, by one of your former opponents. Now we're obviously talking about Tommy Frank. It's a shame, really. I mean, it sort of, I know you sort of said all these people have had their chance, blah, 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 but there would have been local interest in that, wouldn't there?
And there still would be, do you know what I mean? Like, everyone that knows and supports Tommy Frank knows exactly who I am, do you know what I mean? And a lot of people now who support me know who Tommy Frank is because of how I've, do you know what I mean? I was in the studio for that fight. Yeah. You know, I was speaking before, I spoke after, and I spoke during half of the rounds.
Yeah, I did to see it.
So, it's funny though, because I've heard, and rightly so, but I've heard Guerrero saying that he wants to fight me than Martinez. This is what someone tagged me. Now, I've not seen it. Obviously, it would be in a Hispanic-Spanish interview. But apparently, he said that. Oh, but he was 11th with the IBF before, and now maybe defending it, he might bump up a little bit more. I'm not sure.
It was some sort of IBF belt, wasn't it?
Yeah, for the IBF in Continental, I think. But it would have been a lot better for me for Tommy Frank to win and build up to that fight.
Increase your options, wouldn't it?
Yeah, especially when he's got a decent IBF ranking, which is obviously what I was trying to do. I think the right man won. It was a close fight, but I thought the right man won. Yeah. I think Frank was up at one point, but needed one of the last couple of rounds.
You called it very accurately, actually, with your scoring, didn't you?
Yeah, well, do you know what? Because I was enjoying the fight, I weren't really live scoring it. I was just sort of picking, okay, that round. So then when they was asking me to add up the scores, I was like, oh God, do you know what I mean? Put me on the spot. But I always knew who I had ahead. And there was a time when I had Frank ahead when he had the middle rounds, but I said that he needed some of the last three, and I didn't think he got any of them, to be honest. But I think his corner was telling him that he was massively up, when perhaps it wasn't true. He said in the after interview that he was 7 or 8 rounds up at the beginning, and I don't know a single person apart from their team that had that. We had it 2-all in the studio. Some had him down, like a 10-10 round. And I think, to be fair, I think what was really refreshing to see is after the fight, obviously Tommy was gutted, do you know what I mean? He was deflated. But I think Dennis Hobson called it spot on, to be honest, what he said. He basically said along the lines of a very competitive close fight, but he wasn't surprised when Guerrero's won it, and he gave him them last 3 rounds to really put his stamp on it, which Tommy probably needed, do you know what I mean? So, you know, it was refreshing to hear a promoter speak to such honesty, you know, right next to the fighter. But Tommy can come again. I mean, he is a good kid. I think he got caught stuck in between styles a bit, because a lot of the movement and elusiveness was on the money, but there was a lot in between that work. Like, he was getting caught up. He wasn't scoring sort of when there was nothing happening. Do you know what I mean? There was a few tweaks that he maybe had to be a bit busier and maybe a bit fearless. I think he fought with a bit of fear in there. Don't know why. There was just sometimes that he wasn't looking massively to engage when the opportunities were there. But Guerrero's a good fighter. I said that. Just because he looks basic, he's looked basic and he is a decent fighter, which means he's very tough. Do you know what I mean?
He was a good opponent for you at the time. Just because people hadn't heard of him, you know.
And I mean, who knows, it might be the rematch for the world title, if he gets his way.
Rematch City, Braithwaite as well, get him in, yeah. But if you look at the domestic scene, which has always been talked about with you, you've got Jay and obviously Tommy Frank, are potentially realistic options at some point. The ones we initially thought were going to be linked with you, which was Harvey and Joe, they're nowhere to be seen now, are they?
But why is that? Because when fighters like myself, Jay Harris, get offered fights, step-up fights, hard fights, what do? We take them. We don't moan, we don't bitch, we don't, I want XYZ more money on fight week or we're not fighting. Not pulling out of every fight. So I have made it very clear. I always wanted to be the premium flyweight, super flyweight fighter with my management team and with my promoter. Because once you get to that, once you get to the number one of your weight in your stable, then you'll get the first opportunities that come through the door. Do you know what I mean? So I remember we spoke 10 fights ago, I was saying, when people first mentioned Harvey, I said I'll fight him for a Southern Area title. There was a fight date in like September, like 10 weeks later, I said I'll fight him for that. Oh no, it needs to get bigger. all these fighters have missed opportunities where who's to say that Harvey wouldn't have beat me at that level, or Tommy Frank wouldn't have beat me for the British title.
And they both dropped off the radar, haven't they? Sort of.
Or Jeremy Fraser wouldn't have beat me for the English title, or my British title had the opportunity to defend and said no. All these fighters have had chance and chance and chance multiple times to fight me. And where they haven't taken it, well, they're left back in obscurity. 8-0, 9-0s fighting small hall. I don't think Harvey's even got a promoter now. I'm pretty sure Frank kicked him off the books. Joe, I think he's fighting a journeyman for an English title that he's already beat before. It's like, we all come off the same GB setup.
The same era, aren't you?
So for other fighters looking back at that, you need to look at the difference. Would you rather be, we all started at a similar time. Our debuts were similar within months of each other. I'm 16-0, British champion, got 8 belts, IBF world champion, and these fighters have got nothing really to show for it. Yet we've had the same amount of time, and they could probably sit there and feel sorry for themselves. But the realism is that I was taking fights to my contract minimum all the way through. Whenever you can get me on, I'm there. That's why I fought 7 times like that, back to back. Never asked for more money, not once. Never bitched about I need this many weeks, that many weeks. You give me a date, I was there, I was ready. 7 title fights in 14 months, right? Whereas you got Harvey Horn asking for more money to fight Ayaz Ahmed, a gimme. WBO World European first title fight, and you're asking for like 25-30 grand on fight week on a dinner show where you're not fighting. Do you know what I mean? It's like, be realistic. Don't ask for too much. Don't be a diva, because as soon as you're, back of the shelf, you're back of the shelf now. You're going to get used as and when people want to use you, because you're hard to work with. I heard, from no uncertain terms, that it's a harder work to make a 10-round title fight with Harvey Horn than it is to make world title fights.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why people now, where's the promoters, where's the manager, you just forgotten into obscurity, no fight news, no fight dates, no fights, nothing. Yet you have the fighters, you have the fighters like me, Jay Harris, get the phone ring and we fight. Get the phone ring and we fight, and we put ourselves and we edge ourselves into position. And look, Jay's fought for a world title, I fought for a world title, because we've gone out there, we backed ourselves, and look, Jay lost, but by losing his stock had never been higher. Losing is not the end of the world if you lose to a good fighter, and I think that sort of freedom for me has always been the reason why I've never sort of limited where I can succeed, because I will take the opportunity and the risks, even if the odds aren't completely stacked in my favour. For a lot of people, I was an underdog against Moretti. For a lot of people, I had no chance. Let's not forget that just because I beat him. Like, there was a lot of people that were rubbing their hands together, waiting for this day to Sonny get chinned. So we're finally going to have that video of him laid out on the floor. Let's be real. Let's be perfectly honest. But then all of a sudden, because I beat him and beat him comfortably, it was all. And there was also people that were saying, oh, Sonny might win, but only by robbery. How can people start hinting at that, you know what I mean? The only way I'm going to win is by robbery, do you know what I mean? But proved them wrong, and I probably did win over a few people by that. And then there is the people that just think I ran and I'm boring, and that's fine, because they're probably going to tune in and watch and be invested regardless, waiting for the next person to tune me.
Okay, just picking up again. You're talking about being the super premium #1 contender. Are you also going to be that for a spot on the pundit's chair at BT? Because it's all going rather well, that, isn't it? I mean, we talk about duck to water. I mean, I haven't seen one negative review about your punditry, which for you is unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I can talk is boxing, you know. I've said before, I'm a proper like ADHD kid. Once I get a focus, I get a focus, and boxing's been my focus since I was 9 years old. It's nearly 17 years I've been doing it, and I'm not just one of them fighters that sort of just come to the gym, that's it, fight here. Even as amateurs, we used to go to every single boxing show. We'd go up to Newcastle, me and my brother with my dad. We wouldn't be fighting. It'd be like Kurt Garvey fighting in the junior ABA finals. Or, do you know what I mean? But do you know what I mean? We used to go to every show. Every show we used to get up and down. And now as a pro, like any show I can get to when I haven't got my kids or it's not getting involved two-way training, even 3-4 weeks out of world title fights I'm at the MTK shows, I get buzz, I get the energy, I build up, and I like being around there. Do you know what I mean? I like being in boxing environments. It's my happy place.
It's knowledge and experience, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, but I don't even see it like that. I'm not going there for research purposes. I'm going there just
but you take it in,
soaking up this career that we have once of. It's like if you were selling, you know, comic books, you'd go to a comic book convention. You're selling boxing. Go to boxing shows. Go meet the people that actually like what you do. Do you know what I mean? And
but as well, apart from, like you say, your absorption of knowledge, you know, it's the trick is putting it across.
yeah.
But you're actually quite natural at that as well. So.
Do you know what? I like breaking down fights. I think I probably thank a lot of it to, you know, my education. I did A-levels, history, English, physical education, so I'm quite good at waffling, quite good at analysing things, breaking things down and
You're
communicating.
the brains of the family then?
Yeah. The only brains in the family, I think. I just weren't blessed with the looks. But no, it's like a passion for me. It's like when I did the punditry for the Zach Parker show, I knew pretty much most of the fighters on there. There was a couple that had escaped me. But I spent a 2.5 hour journey going down there, just brushing myself up, making sure, oh yeah, I remember that fight, I remember that fight. You know, just going through boxing, making my little notes. And
chances are, as a Henry Turner, you've probably seen as an amateur as well, haven't you?
I sparred him hundreds of times, you know what I mean? In Marbella, even when he was a lot bigger than me, I was still sparring him at the beginning of my pro career. Like people like Henry Turner and I know there was Sam Maxwell.
Reps and boys and all that.
There's loads. Dennis McCann, you know what I mean? It's loads.
So you've got a real insight there, haven't you, to share. So, have you been approached for Lyndon's show yet?
Not yet. I'm hoping so though. I did get approached for the Daniel Dubois one on a last minute job, but because they had Carthampton, they said they couldn't have two short asses. They needed a big one. That's what they said. No, honestly, you think I'm joking? That's what they said.
I think he was just Frampton on his own, was it?
No, it was Frampton, David Adderley.
Oh, that's right.
David Adderley, yeah.
Right.
But he did a good job. I thought, David Adderley. Maybe like a different approach to it, but you know, big people talking about big people fighting, it makes sense, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, hopefully I get on for Lyndon's. I think it'll make sense. But any sort of that sort of work I can do, I'll do because I enjoy it.
What do you reckon to this? I mean, I've been watching it, the Fightzone stuff. Like you say, you've been going along. It looks like a sort of like a little mini festival, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you know, it's not just going to be there and outside.
No,
with
they've
that
got a couple more, I think,
they're about to
yeah.
branch out and they're going to do shows up Scotland, Manchester, all over the place from what I've heard.
It's an ambitious project. I suppose there's risks involved into you're testing the fight fans to see how much they really want to watch, aren't you? Sort of.
Definitely, but one thing that is, I think, working for them is it's like the old days. It's like a syndicate of small promoters that have put together. And between them, they probably do have a decent, relatively good stable, do you know what I mean? With some good fights to be made. So we've already seen some good ones. I mean, Mark Leach Asomba, that was a good fight. I thought Asomba won. You had Myron Mills versus Luke Ballingal.
Yeah,
all these fights for me, like, and my observation of the sport goes much further than just BT and Sky shows and DAZN shows.
If you follow, you know, the game as a whole, you're going to get something out of it, aren't you?
Some real good fights as well. And
you won't like it all, but you know, there'll be English title eliminators, that sort of thing, but it will actually mean something, you know.
And what more than anything, and why I'm really trying to get behind it, and I'm really trying to get involved and sort of help push it, and is it's giving a lot of fighters opportunities for work where there isn't any, and that cannot be overlooked. You know what I mean? There is such little opportunity for work in this climate right now, and getting, you know, there's been shows every single weekend with 7, 8, 9, 10 fights on. You got to support that. I mean, the more fight zones, fight TVs, the zones, BT, Sky, the more opportunity you have to go and work, the more workplaces that are viable for fighters, the better, because then you can start asking for more in between. When there's only two powerhouses, which there has pretty much really been for a while.
But also as a fan, you want boxing on Friday, Saturday, anytime, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, every week.
Yeah.
You know, you want that. It's you know, not awful, but we're not that sad. But when there's a blank weekend with no boxing, you're sort of like,
and you go to look and you think, oh, who's fighting this week? Oh, no one's fighting. Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you think, oh, we've got to go out then.
Yeah. And where it's right on my doorstep, it's about 20 minutes from my house. It's 5 minutes from this gym right now, where they're doing it. It's nice. It's good to go out, you know. I've had good public.
Wear fetching and jacket combos.
It was cold though. It was cold that night. It was meant to proper piss down rain. It didn't that bad, but that's my warmest coat, my brightest coat.
Yeah.
And I've got
definitely stood out.
And that's the point. You see what I mean? No point fitting in all the time. You know what I mean? So
Have you ever tried to fit in?
Tried it once, didn't like it.
Sunshine, thank you very much, and congratulations on all your achievements, mate.
Well, thank you.